Hello and welcome to Will I Vike It. Today I'm joined by my special guest, which is Jen of Drakos' daughter and her glamorous assistant, Duane. / clothes model, I think we said.
And chief taster, I think, as well.
Chief taster as well. Well, you're going to taste stuff as well.
Absolutely.
We've got plenty of food to eat today, but we'll get to that in a bit. So first off, Jen, why don't you tell people what it is you do at Drakos' daughter?
So I work with textiles. So I started sewing at a young age with my mum's help, making clothes. And then when I joined a reenactment group, it was make your own kit. And once people find out you can sew, then that's something that you can help them with. And a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I started making to sell at events because I realised that if you make to sell at an event, then it's not just a money pit weekend. So there you are.
It's an expensive hobby, really.
It's an expensive hobby. A very worthwhile, awesome hobby, but it can be expensive.
But it needs funding somehow.
Needs funding somehow.
And
that's taken me on a massive journey, Craig. I met Duane through reenactment. Hurrah!
Woo!
And yourself, yay! And your lovely family, and learned loads from everyone who I meet about textiles and clothing and how to do heritage crafting as well. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and it still continues.
It does. Always learning as well.
Always.
So you've brought some things along to show me today, which I believe you've got on the fire at the moment.
Yes, so I thought with natural dyeing, there's a whole world spectrum of, you could basically pick anything. Most hedgerow things will give a colour. It could be mostly yellow, sagey greens. However, some plants give a reliable colour all the time, and we've got our native species nettle. I've got some examples we can have a look at in a moment. Nettles, interestingly, did you know they are an indigenous species because we've got evidence of nettle cordage on a arrowhead at Taunton Museum, and also at Must Farm there was cauldron found with some nettles and other quite soupy type ingredients in as well.
Sure, it's a culinary ingredient.
It's a culinary ingredient as well.
Yeah.
And you can get the most delicious greens from nettles at different times of the year. And then the other one I've brought along to have a look at is walnut, where you can use every part of the walnut plant. But I've got bark here, leaves, and some of the husks from around the shell itself. So they all create different types of brown. And walnuts, brought in by the Romans, along with sweet chestnuts and things like that. And did you know, I always think they look like little brains, is what I tell people. The walnuts thought they looked like testicles, so they called them juglans, as in Jupiter's balls.
Lovely.
They are.
Yeah.
That's my walnut fact for you.
Have you tried them pickled?
No, I have not tried juglans pickled.
It's one you can buy from Morrison's if you like.
I'm not a massive pickled fan. I might swing Duane that way.
I should have brought some today, but
have you tried pickled walnuts, sweetie?
No.
They are
They're on his
black,
list.
And when you're making them, you have to be really careful because they will stain everything.
Yes.
Ta-da!
When you pickle them, is it the whole outside
It's
as well, the green and the
bit
nut?
as well. So you actually do them young when they're immature, but yeah, they need soaking in brine and stuff. It's quite a big process.
It is, isn't it? Just to look after some food that you might later eat, or maybe not like.
If you're hungry.
If you're hungry.
Maybe. So, shall we move over to the fire and show people what you've been doing today?
Let's.
So what have we got in the pots, Jen?
So we've got some walnut leaves that I shredded, boiled up, and then strained out the leaf pieces, because you don't want leaf pieces on your wool, Craig. You don't want that. And the heat again helps to fix the colour in. So we can see it's turning a tiny bit orangey, kind of golden brown.
Yeah.
So more time will add a darker colour. And the same with the nettles. With nettles, you have to steep them overnight. So you take the nettle tips, again, cut them up really small, pour boiling water over them, leave them, come back, then heat them gently, and not too much because you can actually kill the pigment and it will go brown. But something's happened to mine, where the nettles I gathered from around my house, I think the landlord might have sprayed them with some kind of weed killer, because my dress is the kind of colour nettles should be going, sagey greens or maybe a brighter green for spring nettles.
Yeah, rather than a
and
blue.
we've got, yeah, it's gone like a blue. So yeah, I'll just keep touching this weed killer type potion, and yeah.
Hope it's not
Let's see,
poisonous.
hope it's not poisonous. But yeah, so about an hour or so to help really fix the colours in. And you'll notice the dye vat going clearer and clearer and clearer. And if you can start to see the bottom of the pan, that's when you know you've kind of exhausted it, it's called. So you've got all the colour in that you're going to get, really.
Okay, nice. So you've got some examples to show us today of what they should look like as well.
Do, and the different parts of the trees and nettles as well. Yeah,
Okay, shall we move back over to our comfy bench away from the fire?
let's do that.
So Jen, what have we got in the baskets?
Well, the thing about natural dyeing, sounds like the start of a song, but anyway, the thing about natural dyeing is, I think it all just coordinates. I don't know how, but you take something walnutty and something nettly, and maybe something woady like Duane's lovely leg wraps here, and it all just matches because of the tones in it. But anyway, here's some of yon pieces of walnut. So this is the colour that the leaves should come, a lovely mustard
That's a nice
brown.
one. Yeah.
You've got darker browns from the bark colours, and I even had a go at doing some linen, which is quite difficult to dye, and so I thought, well, brown, so just going to go brown, so kind of came out okay. And then even within the bark itself, depending on how your dye vat's set up
Yeah.
and what water you're using, where you are in the country, you can get different tones and shades until you go right down to it's hardly dyeing at all, and therefore you've got, like I said before, an exhausted woad vat. My favourite thing at the moment is, as we were saying, the outside of the walnut husks, your green outsides.
It's burned.
Yeah, these are dried out, and you can put them in the freezer as well to do natural dyeing with, and then come back to them later. And then nettles.
Nettles?
Nettles. And again, I tried to dye some linen, but it's not amazingly successful. But it is a colour. It's colour. And I absolutely love spring nettles. Give you this really bright green, and then later in the season you get deeper, sagier colours, all the way down to dark, irony kind of greens. So yeah, it's just a wonderful, wonderful spectrum of colours.
Just from one plant.
Just from one
Really
plant.
good. So what do you use
Love
these
it.
for?
So, primarily at the moment for my workshops, my natural dye, my tablet weaving workshops, where people will get a couple of skeins of some naturally dyed, and they then are doing a piece of 9th century tablet weaving with it. They've got a couple of patterns to choose from.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do more naturally dyed belts and things to put on my store, like this one is a 10th century pattern. And yeah, I'd love it in the future if my store was full of like naturally dyed products. Imagine this, it's like a pick and mix of barks and things, and you come with your little scoop,
And get
there'll be
your
a
own
little
bits.
way thing, yeah, and you get a little plate bag, and Duane goes like this, like a greengrocer. I think it'd be great.
£9 a pound.
Yeah. We're going to think of some phrases to yell out.
Yeah.
Get your weld here, whatever it is. So yeah, it's good fun. It's a journey,
Yeah.
as most things are. Much like your journey, Craig.
That's like my journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all on a journey.
All on a journey.
So when you're doing this and you're at your shows, you're obviously quite busy. So we've had a
Thank
bit
you,
of a
busy.
pre-chat, and you were saying that you never have time to cook your lunch. So I thought I'd bring along a few things, give you some ideas of things you could make at home or even get in the supermarket, and we'll get you to try a few things,
This is awesome.
and we'll see what you like or what you like and what you don't like. And maybe some of them will make it to an event and people will see you, come to buy some of your stuff, and at
And
the
they will
same time
be-
go, oh look, she's eating that thing that Craig told her to make.
It also came from a chat a member of the public said when we was at Hastings and we were in the living history, and all we had was like apples and cheese. And she was like, you haven't got much. And we went, no. We've eaten it all.
Poor traders.
Yeah.
Pre-conquest, post-conquest even.
Oh, yes.
What's
So-
the excuse?
We'll start with a walnut and honey bread, being as we're talking about walnuts. That sound good?
You talk my language now.
Yeah. I going to have to cut it on
Not
this
pickled
thing.
walnuts, Craig.
No, these aren't pickled. Although you could have pickled if you've got a local supermarket that sells that sort of thing.
They do a lot of pickling in Viking age, Saxon age.
Lots of preserving things. So
Preserving.
sometimes in vinegar or
Yeah.
salt.
Yeah,
You can use whey from cheese making.
yeah.
Yeah, lots of different things. I've got a couple of pickled things you can try in a minute.
Yay!
But the aim would always be to try and make your food last all year round, wouldn't it? So,
Of course, yeah.
so any way of preserving it is going to be important. Do you like the end bit, or do you want to?
Oh, I love an end bit, I do. Oh, I love a crust.
I should have got a non-wobbly table for this. I say table.
Right.
This is a really high budget production, you see, and we're using a bench as a table. It's going to be watched by
Is
like
that not like dual
tens
purpose?
of people.
It's like the origins of IKEA right here. IKEA. Scandi origins.
So we've got a bit of bread,
That's awesome.
and yeah, if you want to have a go, I could grab, if you want a bit of cheese on it, I've got some nice cheese, or you can just try it as
We might
is.
just dive in.
Dive in.
Do you want a bit?
Okay.
Have a bit. Go for it.
Thank you.
Oh, nice big chunks of walnut in there, isn't it?
Yeah. So bread would be a bit of a more luxury item for the Viking time. So it depends what status that you're going for, really, because to make it you need an oven, and they would have had clay ovens, but most people are probably making little flatbreads that you'd cook on the fire. But really, you want to make those fresh.
I
So
did
first-
wonder that. What about yeast?
What about yeast? So you've got things like beer dregs, like the sludge from the bottom of making beer. You can use that as a leavening agent, or even like a sourdough starter. So just flour and water, and you've got yeast in the air, and they'll naturally just start to ferment. And that's what gives you that nice kind of airy texture to the bread, so it's not too dense.
It is. So what sort of flour's in this one?
This is just a wholemeal.
It's really nice.
whole meal.
Really nice.
Bit of honey, which maybe they wouldn't have done. It's one of those things, we think honey was probably quite an expensive commodity that they maybe kept just for making meads rather than for flavouring food and things. But modern taste likes sweet things, so sometimes we add it to bread.
Can I ask a silly question about mead making? When you've
Go for
made mead, does all the honey like disappears into the vat? You don't get anything left over, so you can't use it again.
The honey itself
It's gone.
is still in the mead.
It's still in the mead.
It doesn't go anywhere. Basically what happens, you'll the yeast come along and they feed on the sugar.
On the sugar.
And when they eat the sugar, they kind of excrete alcohol.
Yeah.
So they turn the sugar part of the honey into the alcohol. So depending on you can use things like heather honey to get different notes through the mead as well.
But then I guess that's what I mean. So the heather bits, you would strain them out, and then whatever's left is the heather honey. You wouldn't leave bits of heather in your mead, would you?
We use a heather honey, so it's a honey.
A heather honey?
Yeah, so you get heather honey. It's quite expensive.
I'm glad I'm asking these questions, aren't I?
Heather honey is basically the bees are fed on heather,
Got it.
and so the honey they produce tastes of heather. I think, what's it? The little yellow flowers we get, rapeseed. I think if bees, and I'm not a beekeeper, I've got one coming on soon that can answer this, but I believe that bees that feed on rapeseed are what makes set honey. So it changes the texture of it.
Really?
Yeah. And so depending on what you feed your bees on depends on what the end product is.
That's very interesting.
Yes, but as I say, I have got a beekeeper I'm going to be talking to soon, and he'll probably be able to answer everything that you need to know on that.
I'll think of some more questions then, and I'll
Send them
message
my
you.
way. That's fine.
That is delicious though, and her honey just sort of raises it. I've got very sweet tooth,
Yeah.
so anything with honey in as a nice substitute, brilliant. I Vike it.
That's always good. Right, so if you want something a bit more substantial to go with that, then things like dried meat. So I've made some jerky. So this one is made from venison,
Oh wow.
thinly sliced. I say jerky, it's almost between biltong and jerky.
What's the difference? The
Or
spelling.
testing.
No.
No.
I know. Well, I'm not a huge fan of things that take a massive amount of chewing, Craig. When I eat, it's got to be, going in.
I forget which way around this goes, right? So one of them is dried naturally, and one of them is dried with heat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I believe that the one that's dried naturally is first basically cooked in a vinegar solution.
Oh, wow.
Because if you put meat into vinegar, it sort of semi-cooks it. You can do it with fish and lemon juice and things.
Steak tartare.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So mine is
Okay.
kind of a cross between the two because it's been put into a honey and vinegar solution.
Oh, wow.
Bit of salt, bit of pepper, some juniper berries. And so it's semi-cooked, and then I tend to dry it out, usually under the firebox. Whilst I'm at a show, just leave it out there for the day, and that dries it really well. But you can do it in an oven at home.
Just to lay it out in strips so they don't touch and then,
Yeah,
literally.
and in the summer you have to be really careful because wasps love it.
Oh, I bet, if you put
And they
loads
eat
of
it.
honey. Do they? Oh,
they love mint.
carnivores.
We left some out at an event earlier this year. I think it was outside the back of the Saxon Hall at Butser.
Yeah.
And came back and it was covered in wasps and all the meat had holes in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so
don't
this-
have the best teeth in the world, is why I don't like chewing loads.
So this one is venison, but obviously it works with things like beef as well.
Yeah, red meats.
Yeah, and if you haven't got time, you can buy jerky from the supermarket. No one's going to know. Take it out of the packet beforehand.
Lovely. That sounds like a
But
good
yeah,
plan.
if you want
Top
to have a
plan.
go on a...
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll join you for a little piece.
Is it always red meat? So rabbit.
Rabbit? Don't know about rabbit jerky. I guess you could. I think most meats, as long as you dry them out, tends to be done with beef and venison.
I can taste juniper berries, I think. Oh, it's really nice.
It's got homemade vinegar as well, so it's quite an appley.
Yes,
flavour, I
it is,
think,
isn't it?
comes through.
Oh, that's very nice.
I tell you, that keep me quiet for a little while. That could be a good thing.
So again, they would have been preserving stuff like this, but possibly you could just chuck this into a stew. If you're cooking a stew,
Oh,
it would
that's a
then
good
like
idea.
rehydrate in the stew. So, we can't necessarily say they were eating it in this form. Maybe as travelling,
was
a
gonna
travelling
say,
merchant
travelling.
like yourself, then perfect.
Or
But yeah,
going
chuck it into a
overseas.
pot. You don't need, refrigeration or anything, so it's a really good one.
I mean, that would be good in our van because we haven't got electrics in our van still. Yay! Right, like that a lot.
You like that one?
I like it.
So shall we stick with the meat theme and go on to some pickled things?
I mean, why not?
You look unsure about this one. I should have grabbed a fork before we did this because Emma's taken it to wash up.
Don't blame her, she's doing a great job. Right,
She is.
what can we do? Do you want to?
Well, I'll use my fingers.
Do you want? Should we grab that chopping board over there?
Just grab a piece with your fingers and eat it.
Oh my god.
Split it in half if you want, because you
I think
weren't
we'll
too
split it
keen
in
on
half.
this one, were you? I'm going to
No.
admit up front, I don't really like tongue. It's better fresh, like freshly cooked rather than preserved, to be honest. But
How
So
many
this-
stars do we get for doing this?
it's fine. It's just not.
Not bad. It's like a kind of. It's really soft texture.
I'm just going to
A
break
little
it
bit
off.
vinegary.
I'll join you, despite saying I don't like it, but
It doesn't
When
taste
right.
strong at all. The jerky's a lot stronger flavour. It's quite sort of
Yeah, I mean,
tender.
having had like pickled herring, roll marks, the texture is quite similar to that.
it kind of
And-
softens in the vinegar solution.
Yeah.
It's fine. The issue I have with tongue is that I've got a tongue, and it's a
Yeah.
psychological thing.
That's tongue.
No?
No, I'm going to give that a
Oh,
one,
tongue.
one Vike thumb.
One bite. Hang on, so we've got a number rating that's coming halfway through here.
That's what's happening. The bread was a two
2 thumbs.
thumbs Vike.
Hmm.
Jerky 2 thumbs.
No, I'll definitely give the
Dwane's.
thumbs up to the tongue. I'm quite
What would
happy.
you have with that on a bit of bread with a bit of cheese, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
lovely. So the tongue has to be pre-cooked first. So it's basically
Thank goodness.
slow stewed with some veg and stuff. Put carrots, parsnips, onions, leeks.
Nice.
And then when it's finished, you let it cool down, and you have to peel the tongue. It's got a lovely white, like a stocking over it. And you pull that off, slice it up, and then you mix the solution is sort of 50% vinegar to the sort of stock from your stew. Mix them together, pour it over, and leave it for at least a week before you eat it.
So that's the thing, isn't it? So yeah, when we're at home, we can do prepping in the weeks, but that will last a long time now, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason that will spoil. That will just, it's obviously, you'll keep it in a jar.
The
For
same with
modern
the jerky.
convenience, they probably would have kept it in a pot or something.
Yeah.
I think there's evidence that they put like wax seal tops on things, but modern convenience. Go into your tent at a show, don't you? Get the food out, put it in bowls and bring it out, and no one knows any different. Behind the scenes.
But yeah, so both of these things then would last a long time
Yep.
somewhere. So, because like October, we had an event every weekend, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We were doing something, so it's nice to not have to do something every weekend, but to have things that you can come back
I mean,
to.
how quickly are you going to get through a whole jar of tongue? And that's
Oh,
one.
not
That's
very
one.
fast.
That's one ox tongue.
I
so
mean,
that's gonna
I'd
last
take my time and really enjoy every mouthful, definitely.
That's going to last you a few shows at least, isn't it? So, you know, and once you stick it in a pot to boil, you can get on with other stuff, can't you? So it's actually doesn't take a
Yeah.
long time to make it.
I wouldn't trust myself to do it as nicely as you've done it, but because there'd be like some practice tongue.
That just sounds wrong.
Wow.
So if you've got less time and you need to go to, let's say, the Sons of Morris,
No, no.
you know, as a trader,
Morris Dottir.
there are some things that we found earlier in the summer. We couldn't have a fire at an event. We were only told the day before. So we
Yes.
rushed off to the supermarket. What can we buy to demonstrate food? And one of the things we picked up was roll mop herrings. These aren't 100% authentic. There is a recipe in one of my books for a pickled herring though, so you can do it authentically. But if you haven't got time before a show and you just want some extra table nibbles for lunch, this is a good option. Are you up for eating some? I can't
I'll
claim
try.
to have.
I'll try a little bit of Dwayne's.
You've already said.
Dwayne
you
will be
eating
like
herrings,
straight in
didn't
there.
you?
He'll be like,
Yeah, I can eat these until the cows come home.
what is that bit hanging out?
That's onion.
Onions,
Let me
yeah. These, as I say, these won't be authentic as such.
Just got to
I'm not
remember.
going to eat.
They're
the
not
skin,
too bad.
do
They've
you?
got sugar
You don't
in.
eat the skin, do
You
you?
eat everything.
Sugar and gherkins are the only things you couldn't really have. I think if you fish your gherkins out before anyone sees it.
I really don't. Yeah, I'm not a gherkins.
Yeah.
The same in the farmer's place where you go to get the food really quickly. I don't like the
The only
gherkins.
problem is with this is that there's no pretty way of eating it.
Demonstrate.
That is not as bad as I thought it would be.
Having spoke to Tom the blacksmith on a previous episode.
Oh, I know Tom.
You know Tom.
Do you know Tom?
He knows Tom. Everyone
knows
knows
Tom.
Tom. And everyone that's watched the videos will have seen Tom actually tell us about manners and eating in the period. And how things
Now
would
you
be
tell us.
pre-cut to a size where they would just go straight in your mouth.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So rather than having, as Dwayne's got, a nice big piece, you'd actually have things cut into pieces that would pop in your mouth.
Okay, so that is not as bad as I thought it would be.
It's quite sweet.
It's very sweet.
That's the.
What makes it sweet? Something in the pickle.
There's sugar in this particular one. So as I say, these aren't actually authentic for the time. They're just something you could get away with as a quick fix at an event.
And
You're
it's not
busy.
Yeah, it's not as fishy as I thought it would be.
They're more vinegary than fishy,
Yeah.
I would say.
I'm alright with that.
Slightly jellyish texture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like we had some really bad smelling fish cakes the other day. They weren't off. They just the fish was like, ugh. And that's all right. That's all right. I'm all right with that. Do you know where I come from? In East Anglia, Great Yarmouth used to be like the herring capital of England. People used to come from Scotland down to, they call them the herring girls or something like that. And they'd come down to Yarmouth specifically to gut and skin herring all like season long while they were
Nice.
coming in. Yeah.
Turning the waters and iridescent oily colour.
Yeah, and loads of smokehouses as well, but mostly just processing. Fish.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to some other bits. We can get into some sweeter dishes as well.
Nice.
So you can have a bit of pudding with your lunch.
Oh, he knows me.
You know what? As I've moved that, I've realised actually there's 3 things in this bowl that you can try. So we've got some crisp breads, which are basically discs of bread that have been dried out. I did these in the oven just for convenience. You can do it, near a fire with the heat of your fire, but obviously pre-show prep.
Yep.
Use an oven if you've got one. It's modern convenience. We've got some oat cakes.
Yep.
With some fermented wild garlic. And then we've got some honey and oat cakes. So again, with the honey, bit of a luxury item, possibly not used for that, but we do like to make them. Ocean likes sweet food, obviously, so we need to make plenty of food. You've got a 5-year-old running around, wants to eat food. It always needs sugar. So we make those as well, and these, as I say, most of this is stuff I would normally do for an event anyway. So this was perfect for... So yeah, if you want to...
So what sort of flour is it again, Craig?
Those are wholemeal flour.
You want to go halfsies?
Oh.
No,
He wants
see,
his
straight
own.
in. He wants it. Oh, sorry, it's kind of like a pizza. It's gone a bit like a pizza, but
They do
flat.
puff up slightly,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a newer version I've started making where I use sourdough.
Oh.
Mix some flour with sourdough and just bake it as it is with a bit of salt.
I do like sourdough.
And they're very tasty.
That's lovely. It's got like what's this one got in it?
This is a caraway seed.
I could taste something.
I think it's often confused sort of in the record
aniseedy?
as cumin. You often see people mention cumin. I think I've done it myself, to be honest. I think if you look in my first book, there's cumin, but caraway is more likely to be what would have been available.
And because it's dried, does that last?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to store them in takeaway containers just to keep them
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah.
But realistically, they're going to keep relatively well for a while. As long as no moisture gets to them, they'll go stale.
A couple of weeks. If you were
Should
doing a
do,
couple
yeah.
of weekends in a row.
Yeah, I mean, often when I make them, there's enough people in our group that they just disappear. And
Yeah,
they last 2 days if I ration them.
yeah, yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? Putting out little bits and yeah.
They're good
hiding
with a
them.
bit of cheese.
Yes.
I've got my favourite cheese over there. Do you want some?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, is it your favourite?
it is my favourite.
Oh,
Do you want
I've got
some?
to try some of Craig's favourite cheese.
All right then.
It's on there.
Why is it your favourite cheese then, Craig?
This is a goat's cheese.
Oh,
And it's just really tasty, and it's good with the crackers.
so you
This-
get yeah.
I believe they make this in Gloucestershire, but I actually buy it from Avebury at the goat farm. And I was driving past, and I couldn't resist buying some. A lot of people are put off by this because it's black.
Oh. So
This is called Brightwell Ash,
yeah.
and that's an edible mould. But a lot of people, they sell it at markets and things, and they get people phoning up to complain that their cheese was mouldy.
But just like Stilton, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the way it's got
Yeah.
a edible mould. So would the Vikings have had edible mould in their cheese, do you reckon?
Do you know? I couldn't tell you that one. I don't know the answer to that one. I mean, we make soft cheeses, which
Yes.
don't keep for very long.
Yes.
You know, milk, some kind of acid like vinegar or sour buttermilk. And you make the cheese that way. And I've made hard cheeses as well. You can make them from yogurt and things and press them until they go really dry. But then this is sort of the middle ground, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
because
like to say.
here we make the cheese with the kids here at the technology centre where we've got
Got a sandwich. Oh, you're making a crisp sandwich.
yeah, where we just put a bit of vinegar into some milk,
Full fat milk.
full fat milk to
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
the curd separate.
That's it.
Whoa! Very goaty,
Very
but
goaty.
in a nice way. Nicely goat.
Amazing cheese. So yeah, not sponsored by them, but
But you could be. Oh, imagine that.
sponsored by goats.
Sponsored by mouldy cheese.
It really is the best.
That's really nice.
They say they don't actually make it at Avebury. They've got goats which are for meat. Actually, someone else I've spoke to about getting on my podcast.
Oh, nice.
Get a goat farmer on.
Yeah, there's one
Yeah.
down here, isn't there, Craig? Duane.
Yes.
And when you drive past in the car, they'll go, whoa, in a big herd. Whoa.
Well, there's also a llama farm down the road too.
Yeah. Is that the one where you can walk, is it alpacas? You can go for a walk with them.
I think it's the alpacas.
What do they do with the llamas then?
Shave them.
I should just shave them.
For the wool.
Yes.
I think in some countries they eat them.
Yeah.
Don't
There's,
tend to see it on the menu here.
No.
I mean, in Bolivia they would use the milk too.
Yes. There's some South American animal that's between a llama and an alpaca, and it's wild. And every 2 or 3 years they herd them to gather the fleece. And it's so rare, it's almost worth more than gold type jobby. So yeah, but they just run around wild.
I'll give you one of the oat cakes to try, which are these ones
So these
here.
ones with
So
wild
these are
garlic.
fermented wild garlic, which is how I can use wild garlic. He wants a whole one. Because we wouldn't have wild garlic this time of year, so
No.
back in the spring I got some, sprinkled it with a bit of salt,
Yeah.
and you get like a lacto fermentation going.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got jars of the stuff. You open the cupboards at home and you just get hit by wild garlic.
That's lovely. I tried to find somewhere around here that had wild garlic, but I think I might have to do some stealth planting. Like, that's obviously a native species.
It is native, yeah.
So yeah, I want to get more native species around the ATC.
Yeah, good.
Like we don't have a juniper bush either. Is that native or is that Roman?
I believe it's native. I tried to grow some. Do you want some cheese?
Oh right, thanks.
No. I tried to grow one and it died quite quickly.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to hear that.
So I don't
Sorry
have...
for your loss.
Yeah.
And sloes. I haven't seen hardly any sloe berries this year.
I planted some bushes 3 years ago in our garden and they're still tiny. So I tend to just go out and forage them.
We've got some up here, Craig. We're going to get rid of them. You want to have a look? They might be bigger, they might not be. But I might try and again move them somewhere so they kind of stay. So they don't get, totally done in. The other one that I had, but unfortunately it hasn't survived, is the orange berries where you squish them. Sea buckthorn.
Oh, yeah.
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 That's an Iron Age one, but and they're really sweet, and you can make lots of like liqueurs and things from them.
Aren't they really sharp too? Sometimes.
Yes,
Lots of vitamin C, more vitamin C than your citrus fruits.
absolutely. So yeah, how to
I think
keep
kale
healthy.
does as well, though, doesn't it? Kale's really high in vitamin C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Popeye got it wrong.
He did. So, and then we've got, and they're rather large, I must say. So these are honey and oat cakes.
They're very impressive.
Mutual friend Caroline Nicolai makes something very similar to this.
Is it just oats and honey, or have you put flour in as well?
There's butter.
And
Lots and lots,
Lots
of butter.
of butter. Honey, oats. Sometimes I chuck a bit of chopped apple in there. One time I chucked some hazelnuts in.
that's nice.
Just, it's one of those. It's a bit like a, Viking age flapjack.
Love it.
There's a nice bit of pudding
I
after
like
you've had
it.
your lunch.
I like it very much.
Mostly, see, it's all quite dry stuff as well. So if you're like talking to the public and trying to trade,
It takes a lot of energy to talk to the public, doesn't it, sweet? It takes a lot of energy. We do love it. We absolutely love it. But gosh, it takes a lot of energy.
yeah, we're always knackered at the end of the day. Yeah. So do you think any of these would be useful to you at your events?
100%. Meat, definitely. Fish, I've been transformed by. Bread, 100%. Cakes and breads that you can dry. And you've got some dried apple halves
Oh, we
there.
didn't
That's
mention the
really-
dried apples.
Well,
Yeah, so
that's
they're
really
just sliced
interesting.
and dried. You can either air dry them or do it in the oven. I do, for events, just tend to use crab apples because they're a lot smaller and a lot
Yes.
closer to the native variety that they would have had. And they're really good as well if you want a quick cup of tea. Put a few bits of crab apple into a cup, maybe some wild strawberries, pour some hot water over, and a lovely cuppa.
Has it got caffeine in though?
No.
Oh, yes. And isn't crab apples quite sharp?
They are, which is why I'd normally add some wild strawberries or something to it. Right, so to wrap up the episode, I've got a few questions that I've been asking everyone.
Sure.
So have you got a dream project? If you had a limitless budget, what would you want to do with it?
Ooh. I think make an amazing historic textile centre. So you could see the plants growing.
Yeah.
You could wander around all old herbs and dying plants, maybe medicinal plants, all from multi-periods.
Yeah.
You could harvest it. You could go to the shop and buy it. Pick a mix. You could have a go with loads of different workshops in different barn areas, lots of stuff going on. Stuff to engage the kids as well. So not so much as a museum centre, more like a live in history kind of centre, much like they have in Norway, you know, where the village is just lived in all the time. And yeah, what would you do, sweetie?
I think I'd just have to get myself a longhouse, lord it up a bit.
Just buy the APC.
I need a big chair. A big chair to go in there too.
So a throne of some sort. Maybe
Nice.
some fancy clothing. Lord it up a bit.
Soon.
So, go on.
But yeah, I'll just have a long haul, chill out with my friends, have a few drinks, have a good meal,
Sounds nice.
enjoy life.
Nice. I always did like in. Have you been to? We went to the Games Workshop headquarters. What's that?
A Warhammer world.
Warhammer World, and the bar cafe in Warhammer World is like a medieval tavern.
Yeah,
So that was pretty cool.
that's cool.
Got to have at least a bit of that vibe going on somewhere.
So you need
Book
a
of
tavern.
Grudges in the corner.
Yeah.
So do you think you could have survived on a Viking Age diet?
Most definitely.
With a few more vegetables thrown in, yeah, definitely.
So they would have been largely vegetarians anyway for most of the year. Most of the meat would have been saved for winter. You keep your animals for your wool, and for
Absolutely.
your dairy products, and then so you'd eat your meat in the winter really. So yeah, a few more vegetables maybe. Maybe that's something I need to start thinking about with displays, because we've just got apples here. But you could do some pickled cabbage. Go down the pickled route again. Bit of sauerkraut type stuff.
You could do, couldn't you?
Yeah. You don't look keen.
No, just I think I've reached my pickle limit for the year, but that was lovely. It's very nice.
So is there a particular food that you'd miss if you were living in the Viking Age?
Probably loads, but probably chocolate.
Chocolate.
Yeah,
Definitely didn't have that.
shame. What about
About
you,
you?
Steve?
I don't really see anything that I really miss. I'm not a sweet tooth. I don't particularly overly need or enjoy sweet things, so I'd be happy with all of the fish, to be fair.
Just fish. Diet of fish.
That
So
would
you need
do
to be
me.
a Viking fisherman.
Well, I don't think Jen would like me doing that, but I could definitely do a bit of fish and do the fisherman job and bring in the catch.
Does that
I don't
include?
mind fish. Fresh fish is lovely.
Yeah.
It's just don't.
What about like your shellfish?
smoked
Your
fish?
shellfish?
Yeah.
I grew up around Port Harbour, so shellfish is up there.
Yeah.
Lots of fresh razor clams and
Mussels.
mussels, scallops,
Whelks. Yeah, like
periwinkles, cockles. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Where can people find you online?
Oh, so I'm on as Drakos Dottir on Facebook, and there's a website in progress as well.
And where will they find that? I guess you'll put it on Facebook.
We'll
when
put
the
it on
time
Facebook
comes.
when it's launched. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And you?
Mostly on Facebook, or when I'm not out in a field somewhere.
On the battlefield.
On the battlefield.
Nice.